as always, is Sith Jade. Sith, what's going on?
Hi guys, happy to be here for a Star Wars episode.
And of course, Di Marie. Di, how you doing?
Hey guys, may the fourth be with you.
So obviously we're celebrating Star Wars Day here. They've decided to go a little bit deeper than I did.
Yeah.
But I have it on my shirt behind me and in my heart. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, and we're so happy just to have this moment where we can actually just talk about the series as a whole, talk about our experiences, why we're so passionate about it, the good and the bad and the ugly of the series, and possibly later on the future of the series and where we hope it'll go from this point on. Let's get a little bit of an introduction. You guys have any character names for today, or?
I'll say this is basically just a Sith character that I made up for TikTok. I was just like, I want to do this just because I can. So ta-da.
Awesome. And you're just you're Padme.
Yes. I didn't have the little headpiece that she had, but I thought I'd just try to do the makeup up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, you guys look marvelous.
Thanks.
And with that, we'll start off with the episode. So, like we said, I mean, what is there to say about Star Wars? I mean, it's one of the biggest franchises of all time. It's a legacy holder, and it's just beloved around the world, even though there is a lot of toxicity within the fandom, unfortunately. But there's more people that love it than hate it. And I think even the people that are the most vocal, they're the ones that love it the most. And I think a lot of people tend to get, put under a situation where they're deemed toxic just because they feel some sort of way about wherever a particular character development or storyline is going. And I think it's really unfair, first and foremost. So we'll just start off with, how this particular series impacted us when we were younger. Let's start off with you, Sith. Like, when you were young and, you found out that Star Wars was a thing that existed, how did you feel about it? Was that something that you immediately, dove into, or did it, was that something later on in life, or?
So it started off as actually like a taboo thing in my household. My dad has always been into like super nerdy stuff. He's the one that got me into all of this kind of thing. And I was not allowed to watch Star Wars. It was banned in my house. It was, witchcraft. They were very religious people. Wow. So I wasn't even allowed to watch it. But my dad secretly went off to work one day, and he literally left the movies just kind of sitting there next to the TV, and he just leaned in and he's like, "Don't tell mom." And he went to work. And so I literally sat down that day and watched all the movies that we had. I was 8 years old, and I instantly fell in love, not only just because it was taboo and I wasn't supposed to be doing it, but it was a really like pivotal moment of, this is something that I've never seen anything like this before. I wasn't allowed to watch any nerdy stuff, any kind of genre like that. So that was my first real experience with nerdiness. Wow.
And were you allowed to collect? You weren't allowed to collect any of the toys or anything?
Nope, I wasn't allowed to have any of the toys, any of the costumes. I didn't get my first lightsaber until I left the house, until I was 18 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah, a little bit sad, but it just made my love for it as I became an adult. Obviously, I've built my whole brand around Star Wars. So yeah, it really made my love for it very intense.
So you had to be like kind of like a closeted Star Wars fan. Did you make your own stuff, like your own figures or costumes or whatever, just hide them somewhere?
I would just buy pieces of clothing from like thrift stores and stuff, and I would alter them to look like kind of like the characters, and then I'd wear them, and then yeah. It was fun though.
That's actually a lot cooler, I think, just in terms of like your love for it, because, you actually like had to dedicate yourself to it, as opposed to, just, getting sent to the toy store by your parents and, being able to, just pick up whatever you want or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I commend that. It sucks that you had to live that way, but at the same time, I obviously it made you a stronger fan too. So yeah. What about you, Di? Like, what was your first experience with Star Wars?
I've always had Star Wars in my life, to be honest. I bring up my dad a lot, but unlike Sith, I wasn't really censored from anything. So I remember watching Star Wars as a young kid, and every time a new movie came out, I would always take my dad to the theaters to watch it. That's always been our thing. So Yeah, it's just kind of been kind of like Walking Dead, like what we talked about in the past. That was kind of the thing that me and my dad used to bond and hang out. And I love a really good adventure story. So as a little kid, it was really cool to watch that and see what they could come up with.
That's super sweet.
Well, I'm actually, I'm 42 years old. So I was born in 1978. I wasn't old enough, obviously, to see the first movie come out. But I was old enough to see Return of the Jedi in the theater when it was released, which, I mean, needless to say, it was absolutely mind blowing to see that. Because I think Return of the Jedi was actually the first movie that my father ended up taking me to at the theater. So I didn't see A New Hope or Empire until after that point.
Right.
Because needless to say, physical media wasn't the easiest thing in the world at the time to get in the 80s. You were spending like, $70, $80 a pop, if more, if you're lucky enough to actually get VHS, like through some sort of distribution or whatever. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the same as it was today at all.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm the wise Obi-Wan of this group.
Yes.
But yeah, when I was a kid, I was completely enamored with Star Wars. And when I was very young, I actually my teachers kind of gave my parents the old Uncle Buck speech, like he's lackadaisical. He thinks of nothing but, X-Wings and lightsabers, and he's not focusing on his schoolwork. And I was actually pushed back another year because of
Star Wars.
Because that's all I could think about. Like I was just like, like my little child brain was filled with nothing but dreams and whimsy, which is what a kid's brain is supposed to be, like composed of. But but in the school system, that was wrong.
Yeah, no, you're not allowed to be off in your little Star Wars fantasy land.
It goes without saying that Star Wars was a huge part of my childhood. Then you have like the sheets and all that stuff. And I had a huge crush on Carrie Fisher. She was
obviously.
Yeah, I think she was like my ultimate celebrity crush when I was a kid. What was your greatest memory, Sith, when it comes to, being a kid and being introduced to Star Wars? Obviously, it sparks a lot of people's creativity, which of course you went off and, you jumped on that as an adult and, kind of made it your own, your own company. But did it bring any actual creative, flow when it came to you, as a youth? Or
I mean, basically it took over my whole life. Like once I watched it, that was it. I would draw it all the time. I would do anything that I could to create costumes and make props with it. Like it really did engulf my whole life. And any chance that I got, a lot of my friends were really into it as well, because they were into all the nerdy stuff. So any chance that I could, to go over to their houses and watch the movies with them and reenact the stuff, we would do that. We would do that for hours on end. And that was like my little escape, because I wasn't allowed to watch it or do anything with it. So I was like, my friends kind of helped my love for it grow and my obsession grow.
Well, do you have any childhood memories when it comes to Star Wars? Like anything that really sticks out, it's prominent?
So basically, like I said, this was a bonding moment with my dad. So horror films were definitely our thing, but Star Wars.
Your dad's still alive, yeah?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
But Star Wars has always been our thing. So I just remember being little and being on the couch and just kind of cuddling up with my dad, and I'd be like, oh, what is this? What's that droid? What is this? And then he would just kind of explain it to me. And then I just remember being a little kid, and we'd go and go to the theaters and watch the movie together. That was always really special. So
yeah. And that was actually the re-release, the special edition?
No, I remember going to see not The Force Awakens. Sorry, there's so many movies.
There are a lot.
Yeah, I remember going to see A New Hope with my dad. I don't remember how old I was. I was really little, but it was always an event with me and my dad. We'd always go and get popcorn, and then we'd wear our little t-shirts because we'd always go to the store. Yeah.
Yeah, big thing out of it. That's super
yeah.
Funny.
So we'd just get t-shirts for each other and go. It's kind of lame, I think, but it's just our little tradition. So that's always going to be a special part of my childhood.
I think what's amazing to me most about the original trilogy is when George Lucas came to these people and were just like, you're Luke Skywalker, you're Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're Han Solo. Everybody was kind of looking at each other like, what is this about?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? They had no clue, especially Sir Alec Guinness. He had no idea what he was doing.
And he was not thrilled about being a part of the franchise. And he said that multiple times over, that he's like, I had no idea what all this, magic mumbo jumbo is. And this isn't my type of thing that I normally do. He's like, but he came to me and he wanted me to do it. So he's like, all right, whatever. And then it became this huge phenomenon.
Yeah.
So.
You want me to do what? I was on the bridge of the River Kwai. Like,
yeah. I don't have time for this. Sorry.
But yeah, it's, I mean, as a creative, that has to be inspirational in some way, because, like, this is an intellectual property that only really George Lucas and the producers believed in. Nobody had any idea, what was coming out of the gate. It could have been a complete and utter laughingstock. And the thing I love most about Star Wars as a whole is that it seems like, even though, people don't really necessarily care for what they're coming out with at that particular time, like that's what this all is. It's kind of like a time capsule. And if you, allow it to kind of gestate, it will eventually catch on at some point. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's what I think, that's what I love most about it. I mean, God, there's even people like the Star Wars holiday special. I can't believe that.
Yeah. I mean,
I must say, you are a true fan if you like the Star Wars holiday special. And by the way, I love what Mark Hamill posted to James Gunn the other day when he put the script page for the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. And Mark Hamill tweeted back, I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah. Yep. He knows.
He's like, please
not again.
So let me ask you this. Of course, time goes on. So, when you're older, did you, like, I mean, Sith probably not for you, but, like, did you guys, you own all the movies at your house, and did you watch them, like, on repeat constant? Because I remember when I was growing up, like, it was on TV a lot. I think it was around the time where they were starting to, like, switch format from the big screen to television. So it'd be like Star Wars, on channel, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it was on TV and stuff when I was growing up. But did you, like, own all the movies and stuff when you were
me and my dad did, for sure.
Yeah, I would say we owned all of them, but they were kept in hiding. So it was like when I saw them, like, out there, I was like, yes, I get to watch them today. It was, like, super special.
All right, so of course, we're growing up, and we're becoming adolescents and stuff. And I was a little bit older when it came out, but like the special edition, I remember, was released quite a bit. I did go to see the special editions, and I think that was the kick in the nerf herders that started off for me. When George Lucas decided to include all this digital stuff for no reason. And I was just like, oh man, like,
it was a lot. It was a lot. Like, the thing is, like, I love CGI and I love what it can bring to a movie, but there is a point where it's like the main thing that I loved about Star Wars was it was very creative and it was very art centered. They were drawing, like, these giant paintings of, like, the stormtroopers lined up in the hangar base. They were building these puppets. It was, like, a very involved process. It was something that these artists really had a hand in. And there are still artists creating CGI, but there's something different when it's a real thing right in front of you versus just doing it all digitally. It has a different, like, nostalgic feeling to it.
So the special editions, like, started to really rub me the wrong way, because just from the inclusion of all the CG stuff, and you're like, oh God, why? Why does Jabba the Hutt look like that?
Yeah, you could tell it, like, it didn't look quite right.
No, not at all. It didn't fit well at all. But then we're introduced to the prequels, and I don't know, I have a different story than you guys. What was your experience with the prequels when you first saw them? I mean, were the prequels something you saw at the theater, or later on, or what's the situation there?
So the Phantom Menace was the first one that I saw in theaters. That was the first, like, actual Star Wars movie that I got to go see in theaters. But I saw the other ones, and I had very mixed feelings about them. I liked that we were getting to learn more about the characters and get more of a backstory, but the acting was a little bit dry for some of the characters, and there was a lot of heavy CGI. So it had a totally different feel than the nostalgia of the original movies. And so it took me a long time to start to really love them. I had to be warmed up to it, for sure.
Yeah. what was the particular one in that series? Where was the point where you just kind of said, yeah, you know what, this isn't so bad?
The Phantom Menace. As soon
Phantom
as I
Menace?
saw Darth Maul come on there and I saw him in all his glory, because I've been a fan of Ray Park, like for his like martial arts stuff and all of that. So as soon as I saw that he was going to be playing him and that he was doing that, I was sold. I was absolutely sold.
Going in and seeing the prequels was kind of a weird experience because of how different they looked compared to the originals. I just didn't like all the CGI. I thought it looked really corny, but yeah, I don't know. It just kind of grew on me because, again, I watched it repeatedly growing up. So I don't know. It's just you can see such a big difference with the originals and the prequels that it just kind of feels like a different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the turning point. This is where I lost my faith.
This is where you turn to the dark side.
Oh, most definitely. The dark side of, you know what, I'm done with this trilogy and I'm gonna go live my life kind of thing. Yeah, so when I went to see the Phantom Menace, you know, I don't use other terminologies that other people would use, but you know, basically I thought George Lucas came into the dark of the theater, like just jumped me, stole my wallet, and then punched me really hard in the face. That's what I felt like. And
took you for a ride.
Yeah, I was just really just heartbroken, weirdly enough, after that prequel, because like you said, you know, like they were very, very different from, you know, what we knew. I dare say, you know, even now, you know, even though, you know, George Lucas obviously didn't direct it, but Empire is one of the greatest sequels of all time for a reason. And I like that, you know, like that dark aspect, and you know, like, you know, things that obviously, like, you know, travailed into other you know, properties like Avengers Infinity War, where there's no hope for the hero. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one was just, I don't know. I don't
It's
even
not
know
my favorite.
I don't even know where to start. It was not fun for me. And I ended up just denouncing the whole thing, and I didn't look back for years. I you know, I would watch Attack of the Clones, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this isn't going to get any better, is it? And then Revenge of the Sith, I kind of warmed up to a little bit, so it still kind of had me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, Darth Vader breaks out of his shackles and yells, "No!" And I'm like, yeah, I'm done again.
Yeah. It was like a very like roller coaster ride. It was like, okay, I could get behind this. Oh no, never mind.
But you know, we'll get into it later, but you know, I am a born again. That's what I call myself. You know, and you know, it took me some time to get to that point, because I was just, I mean, I was really one of those fans that was really just busted up. Which is really funny because I normally don't let movies get to me, but that really got to me at that
It's
time.
so personal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it's a franchise that you're so heavily invested in, which I think that's why people in Star Wars, the fans, get so intense, get so upset, get at each other's throats, is it has so much nostalgia, and it is such a big franchise for so many people that it's like your baby. Like you want to see it grow into this amazing thing. And when it doesn't do what you want, when the franchise changes, it's hard to come to terms with that.
Yeah, but you know what? Oddly enough, I'm an adult now, and I feel very differently about the prequels. I actually have a deep love for all of them in some fashion, to the point where I don't care where I am. If somebody goes, "Hello there," I go, "General Kenobi."
Yep.
You know, and luckily my neighbors are Star Wars nerds, so they get
That's
that.
good.
But yeah, you know, so you know, I love the politics of it now. I think that those inclusions actually made sense, where people were just like, "Oh my God, man, this is like watching like Star Wars C-SPAN. This is terrible." You know what I mean? Like,
it was very politics heavy.
Yeah, as a kid, when you're watching this, you don't really understand a lot of the meaning behind what's going on in the story. But now, rewatching it as an adult, you can see those underlying tones in the story, and it all makes more sense.
Yeah.
And I think that we can appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah, I was 19 at the time, and I was, you know, young, dumb, and You know, so I wasn't understanding all that stuff at that time.
Yeah,
I just
Like,
wanted
I'm
to
not here
see,
for this.
yeah, I just wanted to see lightsabers and all that stuff. But as an adult now, now all that stuff makes sense.
Yeah.
And you know, being the Star Wars fans that we are now, it's just like, you know, you're digesting all that stuff anyway. Like you want to know the politics and the sociology and the geography and the this and the that and da 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 da. You know what I mean? So it's not just slam bang action anymore. You actually want to know the lore and the history. And you know, like I'll read tons and tons of books about Star Wars. Like I may not be about the Mortal Kombat Wikipedia or whatever, but I will always go on
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
Yes.
I love that
Yes.
website. Yeah. Anytime anyone has any questions about Star Wars and they're like, I'm so lost, I don't know what order to watch it in, who this person is.
Hold
I'm like, go to Wikipedia. Go there. They'll tell you everything you need to know.
So let me ask you this: what is your favorite Star Wars moment as an adult? You know, before we get into the actual, you know, the finale of the trilogy, which I'm actually much kinder and softer about than some people.
Yeah.
I do feel like, you know, some people were done a dirty hand, but for the most part, I really enjoy them. But like, you know, do you remember any like, you know, Star Wars memories as an adult that really just kind of stick with you?
I love the droids. I love C-3PO and R2-D2. I think they're hilarious. I could watch hours of them just bickering back and forth.
What about you? Do you have any like really special moments when it comes to Star Wars?
So I had a kind of falling out with Star Wars. My ex was very, very much so into it, even more so than I was when we started dating. And it kind of gave me like a very toxic feel for it. And I denounced it for actually quite a while. And then I started reading like the extended lore and like all these different like side characters. And that's where I got introduced to Mara Jade, who I modeled my name after. And it just kind of like reinstated my love for it, knowing that there's so you could keep reading and you would never be done reading about Star Wars. I just finished the Darth Bane trilogy, which is an amazing series. If you haven't read it, it's super action packed. It's very, very like heartfelt and in depth. It's crazy. And just knowing that there's tons of stuff like that out there. So if I don't want to watch the movies, I don't even have to ever watch a single movie. There's all this stuff in Star Wars that you can still participate in.
That's the one thing that I've always loved about this series too, is that, you know, like a lot of franchises feel like they need to beat it into their head that, you know, women are strong, women are powerful. And it seems like, you know, Star Wars, you know, maybe from, you know, aside from a few exceptions, like you know, maybe Ula, you know, the slave girl for you know, for Jabba the Hutt, or Shmi Skywalker, who was technically you know, a slave. You know, this series is very female empowering. So you know, I wanted to ask you, you know, that had to be the first time, aside from maybe, you know, like old reruns of Linda Carter's Wonder Woman or something like that, you're seeing a really strong woman like in a very powerful role, Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia. You know, that had to be impactful for you as a woman, I would think, just to see that, or as a young girl.
Yeah, no, as soon as I saw her come on the screen and I saw that she didn't take crap from anybody, I'm like, I want to be you. And the thing is, she didn't do it offensively. She wasn't overly annoying. She wasn't like in your face about it. She was just there. And she was just a powerful presence, just being there as Princess Leia.
She was just like, pick up a blaster, I'm getting you the hell out of here.
Yeah, like, she had no trouble defending herself and being there for herself. It was like, essentially, she didn't even need to be rescued. She probably could have figured it out all on her own if she had enough time. Like, she's the force to be reckoned with. And I love that. And she only got stronger as the movies went on. You know, her character really, really grew and developed.
Yeah, she really was no nonsense. I remember when she sees Tarkin for the first time, I could smell your foul stench on board when she was doing that English accent for some reason. What was your reaction to Leia as a little girl when you first saw her? I'm just like, I'm so intrigued by this because, you know, obviously we have Han Solo, we've got this and this and this, but, you know, I know for a lot of young people, you know, especially young women, like Princess Leia was like the end all be all of, you know, like, wow, this is like a really strong individual, you know what I mean? And she looks just like me. Did you feel that same feeling?
I loved watching her because when you see her, obviously she's a very beautiful woman, but the fact that she's so take charge and she can defend herself, I loved watching that. And I loved seeing her fighting with Luke and Han Solo, and the fact that she can still hold her own, and she never had to lean on them to get out of the situation. She was always able to work through it herself, and I love that.
Yeah. I was just enamored by Luke Skywalker because I kind of came from the same situation where it's like, does life get better than this outside? You know what I mean? Because I think that's pretty much what he typically was. In the beginning of that movie was, he was just, obviously he had this legacy, like behind him, which he wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
But he was also a dreamer too, and really had the opportunity to find, good or bad, where life could take him outside of Tatooine. And I always kind of felt that, that distance from other people. I always felt like I was kind of like on the outside looking in, I guess.
Yeah.
So, honestly, like, for me, like maybe in like the last like 12 years, doing the stuff that I'm doing now within the industry and stuff, like it's really honestly the first time that I actually felt important. Like this is like my Jedi moment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, I was always into Luke Skywalker, but of course, Han Solo, like, who doesn't love that scoundrel,
How could you not?
The movie's such a great escape too, because the whole point of the series is to bring hope during dark times and things like that. So I think that a lot of people growing up were able to relate to that and use that as a way to escape and find new ways to improve their situation, I'm hoping, or maybe imagine it through their favorite characters out there watching.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that people forget is that, this is meant to be a film that brings joy, to people, maybe not just you. One of the greatest things that I get to do as a father now is, my son is autistic and, mostly nonverbal. But he knows what Star Wars is and hasn't seen a stitch of that film, but he knows what a lightsaber is. He knows who Chewbacca is. So, I get to pass that down to him, to a certain degree, the best that I can.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is about. It's not necessarily, yes, you're going to love it because you're an adult, but, like if you can pass off this magic to a child, like that, there's nothing greater than that. So, I wanted to ask you guys, when it comes to Star Wars, do you have any actual like personal stories, like, things, maybe something that happened in your life that Star Wars actually got you through? I know this has actually helped a lot of people too, like, in their time of need. I know a lot of people watch them just to, feel something or anything, some sort of nostalgia or childhood joy or whatever. Do you have anything like of that nature in terms of how it affected you?
I had a little bit of a dark past, so I don't want to get too into it, but I did end up watching Star Wars a lot back then because it did help give me an escape. So I don't really know what else to say about that, but it was just a good getaway from where I was at that point in time. And it did give me a positive outlook because I'm like, okay, maybe I can get through this. And I ended up getting through it. So
yeah.
What about you, Sith?
I mean, Star Wars basically launched my career. Like the thing, like I feel like I would probably still have had success if I didn't base my brand around Star Wars, but it brought me into such a huge fandom with such a large audience, and that really skyrocketed like my fame. I don't want to say like I'm famous, but the little bit of blip of fame that I've gotten to have and like the amazing people that I've gotten to connect with because of having lightsabers on my chest. I've met so many people that I otherwise wouldn't have met. I've had kids come up to me and want to take pictures with me, like because of like Star Wars, and that it's helped me connect when I had trouble connecting, because I was very isolated as a child. I was very removed from stuff like this. So it just really it makes me happy knowing that it brought me everything that I have now.
I only say this story only because I pretty much do it every year in honor of Carrie's memory. But also if there are a lot of Star Wars fans or even, fans within the geekdom, people that are paying attention to us, if they feel lost or they feel like they are, part of a hole that they can't break out of, I think that's pretty much why I bring this up. And it's kind of a reminder to me too of where I was and where I never want to be again.
Yeah.
Right.
And thankfully, I emotionally don't feel like I would ever go back to that place.
Mm-hmm.
But Carrie Fisher, obviously I told you, when I was a kid, she was like my childhood crush. She became kind of like a beacon of hope for me when I was an adult. And it wasn't Princess Leia, it was Carrie.
Yeah.
This was around the time where I ended up losing a child in a different relationship. And I started, really sinking to the bottom when it comes to like just life in general. And, she was doing her thing, behind my back and whatnot. And, there were some things that came to light when it comes to the actual pregnancy that really just broke me in half.
Yeah.
So I got into heroin really bad, and I was doing it for about maybe almost 2 years. And I just felt like there was no, there was only a bottom. There was no, sinking. There was just sinking. Like I was never going to get to the top again.
Yeah.
And when I went to this really horrible rehab, in in the city of Pennsylvania, in the city area of Pennsylvania, it was a really rundown rehab. I wasn't paying attention to the groups. I just thought they were total bullshit. And I just I didn't listen to anything. I didn't listen to the speakers. I didn't listen to whatever. And then they had this like really beat up bookshelf, and there happened to be a book that Carrie wrote, which was kind of sort of an sort of autobiography called Postcards from the Edge.
Yep.
And I of course I saw her name on this beat up cover, and I was like, oh, it's like Carrie Fisher, all right. So then I started reading this book, and it was just basically about like the lens of her life, being the Hollywood royalty that she is, going through the actual mental bouts that she went through, all the drug addictions and all that stuff. And for some reason that actually registered with me more than anything else. Simply because I was seeing somebody that I was absolutely in love with, in terms of the character, seeing them for who they truly are for the first time. Obviously I knew Carrie Fisher was, but I didn't know anything about her life or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I really felt connected to somebody who, obviously, had a lot more than me growing up, but also felt, kind of the same. Like there was just, like there was no rising to the top for her. It was just, completely sinking.
Yeah.
Regardless of her fame, regardless of, the money and all of that stuff. And she got me clean. I wanted to ask you about the new series, or the newest series of films. That's where I found my love again, was The Force Awakens. When I mean, it was, yes, it was fan service. I get that.
Yes.
It was, we get it. But when I saw Han Solo and Chewie again, and of course the Millennium Falcon, and all these new characters that I personally thought were just so well drawn and just incorporated themselves so well into this world that was already at that point decades ahead of the game.
Yeah.
I really I think I weeped a couple times in the theater, because I was just like, this is it. This is it. This is what I want.
As soon as they came on screen, I screamed. I could not believe that they were back and they were there. And it was like a little, like they're besties, and they're still together. They're still there. And that gave me so much hope, just knowing that they were still going strong after all those years. I don't know why that was so heartwarming, but it really was.
Oh, it was
it's amazing that Harrison Ford came back too, because he hated those movies.
Yes. No, he had a dedication to it, just like the fans do. It's so magnanimous.
Well,
it's
no,
so
I don't think that. I think money talks for Harrison.
Yeah.
Where he's just
you can't say no to that.
He's like the grumpy grandpa, but he's always amazing in what he does. So
yeah.
No, it's great that he did return. Of course, he did return for Rise of Skywalker for that one moment. A lot of people thought he was, like CG'd in or something, but no, he actually came back and did that scene. the whole thing for me, and this is obviously like the series, aside from the prequels, I think the prequels are kind of like, out of the woods, I guess, when it comes to the mass amount of hatred. This is the one that really makes people's blood boil.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest with you, I thought that everything that was introduced, even the fact that Luke would do something like toss the lightsaber over his shoulder, it made sense to me, because this is a man who, was just defeated, and he just, he felt completely, utterly broken.
Mm-hmm.
And just like a lot of people, when it comes to Catholicism or anything, of that nature, a lot of people, grow up and they realize, like, man, you know what, this isn't for me, and a lot of this is bullshit.
Yeah.
So it made sense to me that he would actually do that. I didn't hate any of the arc of Luke. I thought it made sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
of
I
course,
agree with
we're
you.
going to get into the Mandalorian, soon, but like having that arc there, within the Mandalorian, I think it actually made that more connective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That there
for
was,
sure.
because the interesting thing about the Mandalorian scene is that, he was wearing black just like he was in Return of the Jedi, but his movements were exactly the same as Anakin Skywalker in that hallway.
Oh yeah.
So he was skating the edge, in my opinion, to, he was skating the dark side edge on that, at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Even when he was doing the good, goodly deed as the Jedi, like he was still, like,
He looked very angry and very beat up and just done with everybody's crap. He looked very, very weathered at that point, which I loved. I thought that's very true to at that point in time for him, what he was going through.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think of like Rey, Finn, and Poe when they were introduced? I fell in love with them. I really did.
Yeah, I did as well. I really loved their characters. I loved Finn just because it's like you don't see that. You don't see a stormtrooper breaking rank and having their own independent thoughts and going, wait a minute, it's bad that we're, killing all these innocent people. Just the fact that he and the fact that he overcame his fear of coming up against the First Order, that he finally came to terms with, like, this is what I need to do. This is the right thing. He was definitely my favorite character, new one that came about.
I think that's the thing that pisses me off about the most, because, like, if you remember the last Skywalker, he goes, Rey, I have to tell you something. And everybody thought, like, oh, he's going to tell her he loves her or whatever. No, he's going to tell her, I have force sensitive, situation too. And like, I need help with this. I need somebody to train me.
Yeah.
And they just pretty much steamrolled and retconned over that entire thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to get into it, but like Boyega was done very dirty by Disney, no question. But I mean, what did you think about the characters when you were introduced to them, Diana? Like, were you in love with them just as much as we were, or did you?
It took me a little bit to warm up to Rey, but I actually really enjoyed her character. I liked seeing her persistence and how much she was training despite the naysayers against her character online. But I thought that she was a really dedicated fighter, and I loved her. I loved the new story arc that she brought into that whole universe.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I hate the terminology Mary Sue, and I hate that. I hate that publication, Mary Sue. I think it's absolute garbage. And I think like articles like that, and other people have the tendency to just put it out there that these characters are basically like, they're deemed worthy immediately. They had to do no training. Everything was just kind of like, the thing is that Rey as a character was, she was already defeated. She didn't have to be defeated. She she
was
didn't
already
know
at
which
rock
way was
bottom.
up. She was living on this dirt planet, and just kind of like Luke, kind of had the same dream, like maybe there is something else out here. So a lot of people like to bitch and complain that she actually ended up taking the Skywalker name, but that's the one thing about Star Wars. It's always been about family, and it doesn't necessarily have to be blood. You know what I mean? It's a family that you create of your own volition. You know what I mean? So none of these actual arcs and stuff, like they didn't affect me at all, and it all kind of made sense to me. But I don't know. I just fell in love with Rey because she I don't know. She was just she was just like Luke in so many ways, where she was just kind of like thrust into this world. She didn't necessarily know what it was. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I guess a lot of people would say that, like it kind of was like sort of like old hat and like just seemed like everything just kind of came to her or whatever. But I disagree. I think that she, um, she always had a destiny and she just had to find it. You know what I mean?
I think
She's
she
a
took it with
fighter.
stride. Yeah, she's a fighter for sure.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
she kept getting knocked down and she kept getting back up and pursuing what she had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Poe, I thought Poe was a little underwritten. We know he's a great pilot, and I like the fact that, it turns out that he is, he has a checker pass and used to be a spice runner or a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Um,
Full resume.
yeah. Oh yeah. That was awesome. That was really cool. Cause
Mhm.
obviously that connects him to Han Solo. Right.
Yep.
But I think the best character that I was introduced to in this new trilogy is Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren. I think he's probably the greater written character in that new series of characters. I think everything about him made sense, and I think that obviously a lot of people had a problem with the Force healing and stuff like that, but I mean, it's in the lore. You just gotta, you know what I mean? It is.
Yeah,
it totally
that's
is.
the thing. If you don't read the lore, if you're not like super overly familiar with the extended like stuff with Star Wars, you wouldn't really know that that's a thing. That's a thing fairly regularly.
So I never I never felt like Disney defeated my childhood, and I never felt like I enjoy Rise of Skywalker quite a bit. I mean, obviously a lot of things don't make sense, especially like Palpatine and Exegol and how he would have a whole fleet of ships or whatever. But if you pay attention to the comics and you read the books and all this stuff, like it's all in there.
It is. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think it's because we brought in so many new fans that really hadn't seen Star Wars or hadn't seen Star Wars in a long time because they skipped the, the prequels and they watched the originals. So they were like, I think they may have felt lost. Like
I think so too.
Where is this coming from? Who are these people? Why is this here?
I think so too. I think Disney, I think that the thing that rubs people the wrong way at Disney is that Disney has a tendency to be the company that they are. And if it's not in the movies, it's going to be in 5 books. So it's going to be in a 20 issue comic book series or whatever.
Yeah.
So, so they could say everything is canonical. So if we didn't include it in the movie, then, if you didn't read the books or whatever, it's your fault, that you don't understand. And I get people's, derision when it comes to that. But as a Star Wars fan, I love all that stuff and I eat all of it up and I buy everything. You know what I mean? Because you just want to know and digest and ingest, so much information as you can. So I love that. I love that there's a publishing company and they have a connection to Marvel and there's a comic book line and I love all this stuff. So I don't know. I was never.
That's what's great though, because depending on how big of a fan you are, you can just watch the movies with a grain of salt and just take it how it is. Or if you're really dedicated into the whole universe, you can read the comics and play the games and do all that and learn more about it. So
yeah, there's
a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, and the other thing about The Last Jedi is that to be quite honest with you, out of those 3 movies, I think The Last Jedi is absolutely the strongest. And I honestly think that it's supposed to teach you that sometimes the old ways aren't necessarily the right way, and things are going to surpass you. You know what I mean? Things are going to change and things are going to be different. I think that's kind of the lesson.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. So let's talk about the future of Star Wars. So, obviously, I think Diana wants to talk about The Mandalorian. I really don't have anything to say about The Mandalorian aside from the fact that it's just so beautifully done, and it is exactly the vision that I expect from Star Wars. To have this mishmash of things that George Lucas loved when he was a kid. Like samurai films and the Western and the, all this kind of, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I love the most about it, is I feel like, when it comes to classic Star Wars, that's probably the most connective to the original vision, I think, in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, they do a wonderful job with that show, and I hope it continues, because right now it's kind of up in the air. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I love The Mandalorian because I think that this movie, not only did it re-spark my interest for Star Wars, but I think that it helped bring a new fandom into the universe, and it helped spark a lot of the passion that other fans had for Star Wars as well. Mm-hmm. And the fact that each episode has so many Easter eggs that throw back to the original movies, yes. I think that that's awesome to watch as a fan of the movies as well. And of course, Grogu.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Grogu is the biggest selling point. I just love how this show connected, pretty much everything. It connected the original Star Wars universe to, things that we're familiar with within the animation, and bringing characters in like Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano. I honestly, I don't think that was simple fan service. I think that was a bold and very smart move on their part, because it really does show how connective all these universes are, because there's Star Wars animations like Clone Wars and everything, and even the Bad Batch, which is coming out next week.
Yes.
These are all connective. These are all canonical to each other. So I do love that Star Wars now has that, that's that link to everything else, so that you can introduce all these things together into one particular world. And I don't think it's confusing the way they're doing it. I think they're doing it very, very well. I think, a lot of people would say that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are the saviors of Star Wars. And, to a certain degree, I would definitely agree with that, for sure.
I agree. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. Oh, this is really the first time in a long time that I've seen Star Wars fans actually be happy with something from Star Wars, not have a bunch of complaints, not be super upset about the lore or the characters. It was just happiness and excitedness for the next episode to come out, to see Grogu again. It was just all up, instead of, we don't like this is garbage.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I saw a lot more positive than I did negative, for sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, a lot of people that I didn't even know were into Star Wars, like, were watching The Mandalorian. So they pulled a lot of new fans that initially would think this stuff is like whatever they think, whatever
this
word
show
you
definitely brought a lot of people back together.
I agree.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And I mean, come on, like, they brought Boba Fett back. Like, my God.
Right.
I was super happy about that. I'm very excited to see them work with the Book of Boba Fett. I cannot wait.
Well, let's talk about the future of Star Wars. So, obviously we've got the Book of Boba Fett coming up, and we've got the Bad Batch coming up next, when this drops, actually, May the 4th. May the 4th be with you guys again. We hope you really enjoyed this episode. Like, we just wanted to be more personable with this episode, and really just focus on what makes us love this particular franchise so much, because it means a lot to so many people, and means a lot to people in so many different ways. I think that's why I love it. I would love to go to a Star Wars celebration just to meet new Star Wars fans and see where
it is like nothing else. Like, if you ever do get to go to one, please go. The one time, just once, that I got to go, that there's no convention that I've been to that compares to that.
Well, let's make it a goal to make Pop Jedi, part of the celebration at some point.
Yeah, I would love that.
So let's talk about the future of Star Wars. Obviously there's a lot of things coming, out of the pipeline. What is the one, what is the couple things that you're really expecting and wanting, as far as your own desires when it comes to the future of Galaxy Far Away?
I'm just excited that they're starting to bring in more characters that are considered like side characters or lower tier characters that haven't gotten a lot of story or a lot of backstory, that we get to see them now on the big screen in these series, because I like the extended lore. I like the fact that we're getting a Bad Batch series. This is like, I want to see more. As much Star Wars as you can throw at me, please give it to me. So
what about you, Diane?
I'm really excited about the Bad Batch to see what all happened with Order 66. I'm really hoping that we talked about this theory a couple weeks ago, but I'm really hoping that maybe they'll shed some light on how Grogu got saved. I really hope, and I'm really excited to see Boba Fett because he's such an iconic character, and the fact that he worked with the criminal underworld, I want to see more of that as well.
Yeah, because he went on some crazy bounty hunts and adventures.
He's one of the few.
Yeah, and we don't get to see that. So now we're gonna get to see him actually getting into it.
Well, I have a list. Well, let's see. There's a couple announcements that I'm really, really excited about. I love Patty Jenkins and what she does. I know a lot of people hate that movie, but to some degree I do adore Wonder Woman 84. So I'm really excited that she's doing something that's more personal, because of the fact that her dad was a fighter pilot, and she's doing a Rogue Squadron movie. I don't think there's anybody better for that for that job. I'm a big fan of the High Republic, which is the comics and the books and everything that just got released. And I'm hoping with this particular series, The Acolyte, that we get introductions of things like Darth Revan, that we're really focused on, not even just the formation of the Empire, but just seeing where the dark side actually resides from.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a little kernel of what High Republic is doing right now. But I do love that. I can't recommend that enough, because this is we never saw Jedi as a prosperous community that's hundreds and hundreds strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They are the light of the galaxy. Technically, they are the they are the true protection of the entire span of the universe. We just saw the Jedi kind of fade and die out.
Multiple times.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping that this this takes with with fans, and they'll focus more on the High Republic stuff, because there's so many great characters.
Oh yeah.
And so much stuff to play with on the big screen, or animation or whatever. And for the Boba Fett show, honestly, I just hope that he did take over the underworld, and I hope that there is a bounty hunter war, and they introduce characters that we know from the from the franchise, like Bosk and Cad Bane, and you know what I mean. I'm really hoping that's where it goes. I'm really excited about Boba Fett, and of course, when it comes to the Mandalorian, I just hope it comes back, and I I hope they play into the the Mandalore thing that we're expecting. But yeah, I'm like you, Sith. I am super stoked that there's all this Star Wars stuff coming down the pike. So that's our show, guys. Like we said, this is a little more of a personal episode. Star Wars means a lot to all of us, and I'm sure it means a lot to all of you in some way. We're going to do a couple special episodes. So that next week we'll be celebrating the anniversary of Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. And I know we're all very excited about that, especially for me, because I remember things like going to the theater and seeing Captain America pick up Mjolnir for the first time, and the crowd just went nuts.
Crazy.
So yeah, that's one of the greatest sagas in comic book history, no question. So we're gonna be talking about that. Like we said, happy Star Wars Day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.